You've landed here because you're interested in understanding yourself better, and you want to know how the BioGraffs method can help you gain clarity. Maybe you're a couple that's interested in a new way to talk to each other about issues or problems you're having. Maybe you want to use it to help you help another person understand you better.
Feels like a loop of distraction.
Or maybe you're looking for a fun way to have a deep conversation about life. Whatever's brought you to BioGraffs, I'm so glad you're here. This workshop is for you if you don't know anything at all about BioGraffs, even if you don't have a BioGraffs set. Here's the thing, you don't really have to have it, because you probably have things around your house that you can do this method with. You could use candy, like M&Ms. You could do it with buttons. You could do it with little cut-up pieces of paper. And you need about 10 to 20 of each color. These are what I call contextless objects. They don't mean anything in themselves. You give them the meaning, and then you arrange them in a way that creates more meaning and more understanding. This is Lily and G, who have agreed to participate in this demonstration of what it's like using BioGraffs for the first time. You don't know anything about it. The first thing that we're going to do is think about what you are going to make the biograph about. You've got a problem that you want to work out or an issue, or you just want to spend a fun evening talking about deep stuff together. Making a biograph is a three-step process. You want to decide on the story you're going to tell, then you're going to think of the parts of that story, and then you're going to make the actual biograph. The first step is to think about what you want to tell the story about. One thing you can do is you can go to biograffs.com, and under resources, you'll find something called a title picker. There, you'll find a bunch of categories of interest. Categories about relationships, family, identity, sexuality, mental health. Which one calls to you? Click on one and you'll see ideas for titles you could use for your biograph. I call them titles because you know how when you're in school and you had to write an essay that was like my summer vacation, and that's your title? So it's kind of like that. You're telling a story, but in this case, it's what happens when we fight, or what it's like inside my head, or how I felt misunderstood, or what I need from my partner. Anything that is present in your life and on your mind. So browse through these titles or adapt one to fit what's going on in your life. Let's see what Lily and G picked.
We talked about this a little bit beforehand, and we had a few conversations recently about the potential for living together in the next 6 months to a year. So we were thinking it might be fun to make a biograph on what does living together look like to me and what does living together look like to him, and then kind of talk through that together.
That's a great idea.
They're immediately just I want to play with them. So okay.
You said generally you want to make one about living together, what it would look like. So I would suggest making one that I call a timeline type biograph. It's concrete and it's easiest for people to see how to create it. So for someone making one a first time, I usually suggest that that's a way to start.
There's an important distinction in my mind between weekday and weekend. Which one would you recommend?
Well, I think you don't have to do the same thing.
Okay.
You could sort of just take that very, very general kind of prompt as a place to start, and then each of you do your own thing. And then once you've built your biographs and you're going to talk about it, then you'll talk about both things, and they'll be different, and that'll be good. So the first step then is to think of the parts of that experience. For each part, you'll write down just a couple of words to stand for that part. Those parts can be thoughts or feelings or actions or objects or chores or...
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was like, I wonder if he's gonna put chores in his, because I'm gonna put them in mine. That was the appropriate time to look at the camera. Okay.
Sort of start jotting down things that you feel like are part of this story of when you're living together.
And they can be a mix of all those things.
Of all those things.
And how many aspects of the story should we aim to identify?
Well, there are 10 colors. 10 10 is usually enough to touch on all the parts of the story you want to share. Those parts can be feelings you have, thoughts, things you or someone else did, things that happen, physical sensations, things you said or someone else said, or even abstract concepts like kindness. Now Lily and G have the beginnings of their BioGraffs with 10 parts of a story attached to 10 colored cubes that will represent those ideas. The next step is building your visual story. BioGraffs comes with these useful storyboard cards that help you figure out how to tell your story visually with cubes. When BioGraffs was first developed, it was presented as an interactive art installation, and we collected nearly 1,000 BioGraffs people had made and submitted to the project. Analyzing these revealed 8 basic ways that people approach the task of making a visual story with cubes. A timeline was the most common. Others are like a bar graph of values. Some are like 2 little BioGraffs side by side comparing 2 things. And others are more freeform, what we call mosaics. If you have a BioGraff set, look through these cards to pick one that seems most in line with the title you chose. If you don't have a kit, you can explore the gallery on biograffs.com for inspiration. Then start playing around with the cubes and try to arrange them in ways that communicate something about your story. You might decide to make a timeline like I suggested for Lily and G. You map out an event that happened or that you want to happen. That's the easiest kind of BioGraffs to make and good for your first time. What comes first in this story? What happens next? How will you arrange your cubes to tell this story? What we want you to do is harness the complexity of spatial metaphors to express meaning. You don't really need to know this because you will use spatial metaphors instinctively without me telling you anything about it. Spatial metaphors are embedded in our language. The most obvious example is good is up and bad is down. It's right there in the words we use about mood. I'm feeling down, depressed. I'm weighed down with sadness. So people tend to put bad things lower on the BioGraffs palette and good things higher. That's a spatial metaphor. And when you start playing around with the cubes, you'll naturally kind of go and do that because that's how our minds work. Let's think of some others. You might have one color of cubes surrounding the other because one of the thoughts or feelings is kind of core. You feel it deep in your heart or in your mind, and the other is more outwardly focused. Or maybe one kind of surrounds the other because maybe one thought protects the other or hides it. Maybe you arrange one thought like the legs of a table because one feeling is a flat surface of openness and the other feeling is more as if it supports the first one. You might arrange some cubes very tidy and straight. Does that indicate order and clarity or rigidity? Do chaotically arranged cubes mean confusion or do they mean freedom?
Honestly, looking at our boards, I would have thought that I would have made something like that and you would have made something like this.
So we decided G was going to go first. So the two of you are going to talk about your graphs together, basically. And why don't you just tell Lily what your BioGraff means?
This is a story of a day. I tried to indicate some rising intensity during my work day, as orange represents work. Is sort of the way that the path goes. And
this next phase of making BioGraffs with a partner is where I think the real magic happens. Telling the story of your BioGraffs to each other. What does it mean? What are you trying to show? Create space for you each to hear each other out and really listen to each other.
Yeah, we've got a lot of
love at the end of the day. I love that. The most interesting thing I'm getting is like maybe some of the way things were emphasized because like I didn't put them on my board, for example, and I don't want to totally compare, but like I didn't put them on my board, but it's cool to see like, oh, that is a big priority for you So like I know to put that on my mental board, so to speak.
I'm finding, lacking on mine at least, is the only 1 square of time with friends.
It slows down the conversation. Each person can fully share their thoughts and feelings and experiences.
Like that's helpful for me to like see what's comfortable to you.
The biograph itself creates a focus of storytelling.
Yeah. Like the way that you formatted yours had a lot to do with your feelings throughout the day, right? Like this is why the blocks came up. Like that's your like heightened sense of stress. For me, like I don't have that represented here. So like having it represented here it just shows how emotionally intelligent you are. And I like being aware of that and also like bringing that to the forefront for myself as we're thinking about things for the future.
Yeah, I almost thought about like
Sharing the biographs you've created encourages active listening and curiosity from your partner.
No, and that's another thing I was excited about doing this is like we really are gonna kind of lay it out what's in our brains instead of experiencing it later and then kind of figuring it out along the way, but you've already got like you're already in the middle of your feelings instead of kind of addressing it beforehand and preparing for those feelings.
It invites your partner to ask questions so you can say more about where you're coming from.
One of the things that I loved, when you said, I have some things to say about that, but I'm going to wait till you finish, which is, to me, I think is a big part of this, is it really gives each person a space to tell their whole story. And then you have this way to remember all the things you said and refer back to them and continue discussing them. And that's exactly what I'm seeing here, which is great.
This was fun. It took a conversation that like could be just for fun or it could be really challenging and like kind of let us do both at the same time. Like we are able to say like, oh, I like and I don't like, and it doesn't become so much about your feelings. It's like the picture, the idea, and when it's out here, like we can still change it because it feels like we're literally building it together at that point. I do feel a lot normally and can't always best articulate myself when I'm in the middle of my feelings. So here I get in my brain and then I put my brain out on here. And so now like as you are bringing the feelings to the table and saying, oh, well, I see your brain and I don't necessarily like these pieces of where it brought out, I can logically think through why that is and put my feelings towards it a little bit. But we've already got it out here to like work with.
Making plans surrounds it.
Yeah, and you really like
Punctuated by coffee.
Making a biograph can help you gain clarity on issues in your life and share your insights with another person.
just seeing like the real like your ability to. Are those?
I hope this brief introduction helps you to see how easy it is to use biographs. There's a lot of places this method can take you and so much depth to explore. Remember the 3 steps to the first part. Think of a title, think of the parts of that story, make your biograph. Check out the sequences page on biographs.com for exercises and activities to do with your biographs.
Talk about them later.
Take pictures of biographs you make to share with someone else or refer to later.
Let's make sure they came out.
If you don't have a biograph set yet, you might want to get one. The BioGraphs Mini is good for one person working alone. The BioGraphs Mag Plus is magnetic, so the cubes stay where you put them. Comes with 2 boards and enough cubes for 2 people. Plus guidance on active listening to improve your communication skills. If you have any questions about all I've presented here, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me today.
The way I think about it is that when we attach words to thoughts and feelings, we're packaging them for export. They are considerably less complex than when they're first bouncing around in our head. The words we choose are like a basket on a big hot air balloon. Connected to that basket is the hot air balloon of all the intricate details of everything that feeling is connected to.
So Lily and G are just going to write a word or two to connect to each color of cube, but they know it's
Connected to this big balloon of all this other stuff.
You just feel a lot, and that's awesome. And maybe I should do a little bit more of
I mean,
that.
yeah, I feel like you feel a lot too, and so like your very logical designation of like we have exactly 2 blocks.
2 blocks for gym time.
2 blocks for gym time.
That's it.
No more. And I'm like, here's a smattering of stuff.
Yeah.
We do the thing there.
I mean, I even just think like the source of those situations, like difficult situations, are misunderstanding and like literally this perception. If we do work through it using something like this, and I can show you like, okay, let's change it because you said that's different, and now I'm understanding you more, and I want to do that. You know, like that could help resolve any situation.
You'll come away from a BioGraffs experience feeling like you have both fully said your piece and really understand each other.
But then you've got more of that in your day, like you want. We had this idea of what we were going to talk about today. I had it in my mind what I would talk about. Then when we actually started doing it, that changed. And I think I got closer to, again, the motivations behind why I even want to have this conversation, right? Like the ways that we can be closer and how I want to, anyways.
More pink.
More pink. So yes,
more pink.
Understanding that can be the new BioGraffs tagline, # more pink. But yes, understanding my motivations, I think using this tool helped that, and then articulating those motivations to you, this tool helped that. And so, yeah, that's really what I want to understand is I'm really intrigued because, again, like I said, I came in here thinking I knew what aspects I was going to use, having a little experience with BioGraphs before, and I, found my way into identifying different pieces of my story. So, but yeah, I love that. I love where your head's at. Always. That maybe it was too much on my part at sometimes, right? Like too much mental load that I'm bringing to the table. But knowing that you want that during parts of your day, it's like, don't ask him in the middle of the day when he's at this heightened state. Hey, did you do all the planning for this vacation we have going on?
Absolutely not.
Because he'll absolutely won't be able to handle that question then, but he will be able to handle that question later or like right before bed.